We've all heard that everything's bigger in Texas, but even by Texas standards, this is huge. Hi, my name is Eric Wade. I've spent 25 years as an entrepreneur and financial analyst. In the 1990s, I turned an $8 side project into $1 million. I've even been an active buyer of Bitcoin for more than a decade. It's up 140,000% over that time. But today, I'm sharing a money-making opportunity unlike anything I've ever seen. You see, a perfect storm of events is unfolding in the Lone Star State that will have a massive impact on how you make money and how you use money in America for the next decade, no matter where you may personally call home. I'm originally from New Mexico, but as I'll show you, I've used what they're doing to make an additional $100,000. And I believe it's just the very beginning. If you want to take advantage of it yourself, it's straightforward to do so. And you can get started with about $100 or so. But your time is running out. That's why I've dropped everything and I'm traveling to Texas today to show you how it works firsthand. Now, chances are you've already heard that the state's been at the heart of some of the most important financial trends in recent years. You've also probably heard about huge corporations moving there, like Elon Musk's Tesla, SpaceX, and X, and Chevron, and CBRE, the biggest commercial real estate firm in the world. BlackRock is building out the first ever Texas stock exchange. And we've seen a massive migration of the rich and powerful to Texas too. In fact, the average household income of these young, rich newcomers, it's north of $400,000 per year. But it's not just favorable tax laws or a booming economy or a business-friendly government that's bringing people to the state. There's also a huge currency story playing out right here. Right now, it's not getting anything like the coverage in the media that it deserves. But that could all soon change with a single announcement from the Texas state government. You see, what's happening right now in Texas is going to change the entire U.S. economy in a way that we haven't seen for generations. It could give the state, which would already be the 8th largest economy in the world if it was its own country, could give it tremendous power. It could pose a new challenge to anyone who holds or uses U.S. dollars both here or abroad. And it could create an enormous investment opportunity for you once you see what's playing out. As I mentioned, you don't need to be in Texas to set yourself up to profit. I've found nearly a dozen ways that you could potentially make money from this. In some cases, I expect you could make 10 times your money over the long run. Now, let me explain what I mean by that.
By now, you're probably realizing that I'm not talking to you from any of the glitzy headquarters in Dallas or Austin or Houston. Instead, I'm here in Rockdale, Texas, which has a population of just 5,500. And a few years ago, this town was really struggling.
Alcoa closed a major plant, and many residents they're out of jobs. The Rockdale Economic Development Director said it cut their economy in half. In less than a year, violent crime nearly doubled, and drug seizures by the Rockdale police skyrocketed. But that's not what you'll see today. Thanks to a $1 billion investment, the city is thriving. For the first time ever, sales tax revenues are on track to exceed $1 million. Over 1,500 well-paying jobs have been created in and around Rockdale, allowing residents to keep their homes and not move to find work. How did that happen? Well, most people still have no idea. But the lights at the old plant have come back on. Inside, Texans are minting a new currency. I'm not using a metaphor either here. I'm talking about a real currency that's actively being used at grocery stores and coffee shops and car dealerships and being mined and minted directly by the authorities here. It's this new form of money that's at the heart of today's opportunity. Across the state, legislation is being passed to support its rollout. And while you might think this is impossible, or that something like this would take years to pan out, that couldn't be further from the truth. It's all happening now and it's accelerating at a breakneck pace. Governor Greg Abbott signed House Bill 4474 into law to recognize the new currency and supply legal rights to its holders. Now, that bill states that no citizen of Texas shall ever be deprived of their right to own it. And it grants all new currency holders the same rights as people who hold US dollars. The bill also updates the state's commercial laws so that businesses must accept it as legal tender and treat it the same as if you were paying by cash or by credit card. Even conservative Texas Senator Ted Cruz, he's backing the new currency. He recently posted a picture to his social media announcing that he purchased 3 machines to process Texas's new currency. He captioned that photo, "I'm proud to join the ranks." Perhaps most surprising is that the state is paying fortunes to companies helping with this initiative. In Rockdale, the new currency plant owners, they received $31 million from the state for their efforts. But what's even more incredible is that this phenomenon is not isolated to this tiny city. The same story is playing out across the state in places you've likely never heard of. Wink, Pecos, Alborz, Granbury, Cotulla, they're all part of Texas's master plan to adopt this new currency and take on the US dollar. Now, what I mean by that is that for the first time in United States economic history, we're seeing a viable long-term alternative to the dollar. And that has big consequences for investors and anyone holding cash. I've been tracking what's happening in Texas for the last 2 decades and can say with certainty that a lot of money is already being made. I know because I've seen it personally. As I mentioned earlier, I've already made money with this new currency, and I've found dozens of other ways to double, 5x, and sometimes even 10x money with it. Some reports claim people are making the equivalent of $20 million per day. And while that's far and beyond what I would ever predict that you'd see, I believe you could 10x your money or more once you understand the full extent of what's happening. As a broker for Merrill Lynch for many years, I can admit that most people will go their entire lives without making 10 times their money on any investment. But since tracking this story, I've already shown a small group of people how to do it 3 times and how to double their money, or better, more than 20 separate times. So I'm stepping forward now for 2 reasons. First, because the window's closing to get in on this new currency. And with most sea change moments, the biggest gains will go to those who had the foresight to see what's happening. And I'll show you, there's an announcement from the authorities that could soon make this opportunity go parabolic very quickly. I'll walk you through all the details and exactly what to do. Now, second, I'm speaking out because what's happening in Texas will only exacerbate America's dire wealth gap problem. As it stands, the top 400 Americans are wealthier than the bottom 150 million. As a UC Berkeley economist wrote, U.S. wealth concentration seems to have returned to levels last seen during the Roaring '20s. Mark my word, many of the wealthiest people in America know what's happening in Texas, and they have positioned themselves to profit. It's why over the last decade, the number of millionaires living in the state capital of Austin has more than doubled. And it's why Texas now has more billionaires than Miami, Washington, D.C., and Boston combined. What's happening with Texas's new currency is a major reason for the boom. And also why parts of the state have been dubbed Silicon Hills. Now today, I'll share the steps that you can still take to potentially capture the remaining upside. Absolutely anyone can follow these steps, no matter what your investing experience or where you live. All it takes is around $100 and just a few minutes of your time. Now just note, as you'll see, this is a true drawbridge moment. On the one side will be those who understand what's happening in Texas. They can see that this will have massive consequences that extend across the country and around the world for decades to come. Folks who position themselves to profit from these changes could continue to get richer and richer as a result. Now, on the other side, well, unfortunately, that's most Americans who don't understand what's going on and are getting left further and further and further behind. I think that soon, in only a few years, the wealth gap in America will be even bigger, much bigger than it is today. My best advice is to make sure you're on the right side of this trend. So let me explain everything that you need to know. It may not seem like there's money to be made here in Rockdale. If you take Route 79 and cut through town, you'll spot a Dollar Tree, a Dairy Queen, and Aaron's rent-to-own furniture. The most expensive hotel in town goes for $86 a night. But to overlook Rockdale's potential would be a big mistake. And once people catch on to what's happening here, even more will flock to the state with dollar signs in their eyes. It'll have massive long-term consequences for investors and the markets. But it wouldn't be the first time. In many ways, America's financial history is a history of boom towns. Now, sure, I know you know about the 1849 California gold rush, right? But did you know New Bedford, Massachusetts was once the wealthiest city in America because of its connection to whale oil, and that was then used for lighting. We also saw a boom in Rochester, New York, after the completion of the Erie Canal. This led to the founding of Western Union in 1851, pharma company Bausch & Lomb in 1852, and Kodak in 1892. Then along came the oil boom of 1901. According to a Texas oil man named Michael Halbudi, the boom, quote, revived the Industrial Revolution, which had been dead for a while. It caused the United States to become a world power. It revolutionized transportation through the automobile industry, and it started the liquid fuel age, the greatest age in the history of the world. Now that boom started after the Lucas Gusher on Spindletop Hill shot oil 200 feet into the air for 9 straight days. Think of that. Eventually, it led to the birth of many of the biggest and most profitable companies in American history. The Gulf Oil Corporation, Texaco, Sunoco, EOG, ConocoPhillips, Chevron, and ExxonMobil. It created a land boom in Texas. One resident who'd been trying to offload land at $150 for over 3 years was finally able to sell after the Gusher, but now it was for $20,000. And that buyer then turned around 15 minutes later and resold the land for $50,000. The boom also secured the legacy of the richest American to ever live, John D. Rockefeller. Now, it's easy to look back a century or more and just wave this all off. You may be thinking, we'll never see those types of opportunities again. But you and I both witnessed the dawn of America's greatest boom town, Silicon Valley. But you didn't need to live in Silicon Valley to make a fortune off what was happening there, did you? As you know, that where most of the world's biggest technology companies were founded, just $100 in NVIDIA 30 years ago would be close to $300,000 today. But if you missed that opportunity, it's not your fault. Even some of the best investors played it wrong. Billionaire hedge fund manager Stanley Druckenmiller regrets dumping his shares of the chip maker, which would now be worth over $1 billion. But now you have a rare second chance to see that kind of NVIDIA upside. How do I know? Well, I've seen firsthand just how a boom like this can change your life. It first happened to me during the 1990s. I went from being a stockbroker, totally beholden to my company and always at the whim of the market and my clients' needs, to financially free. I now live in an exclusive gated golf community in California and work because I want to, not because I have to. How did I do it? By learning everything I could about the boom that was just beginning in Silicon Valley. Now, one of the first things that I realized back then was that there would soon be the equivalent of real estate in the digital world. In other words, domain names or website addresses. So I acquired multiple addresses that I thought would become very popular. And I made well over $1 million when I sold them down the road. A decade later, I did it again. This time when I realized that the digital world would also need its own currency. So I assembled powerful home computers to be able to monitor and test and tap into what was happening in the AI and the cryptocurrency spaces. Within the span of about 6 months, I made 1,300% on one currency. I made 2,900% on another one and 3,400% on a third one. So not long after that, I was recruited by one of America's top independent financial research firms. They wanted me to explain to their wealthy clientele how these technologies worked, but in plain English. And they wanted me to find them the best companies in the space to invest in. And I've done just that. I've found investments that could have made you a ton of money. These are some of my best picks from across my services. Of course, all investments carry risk, and past performance does not guarantee future results. Now, still, I think the biggest wins of my career are ahead of me. That's because while conducting this research, I realized that what's happening in Texas is a once-in-a-lifetime wealth-generating event. Which brings me right back around to the big question you're probably asking yourself. What exactly is Texas's new currency? As you might expect, this is about cryptocurrencies. But whether you're a crypto enthusiast or a skeptic, I assure you, this isn't the story that you're seeing in the headlines. It's not about Bitcoin hitting $100,000 or Elon Musk's favorite meme coins or even the latest hacks and scams. Those stories might grab attention, but they're not going to shape your financial future. What's happening in Texas is far bigger, a financial transformation unlike anything in the past 150 years. This shift will impact your money whether or not you own cryptocurrencies. It could reset the entire US monetary system. In Texas towns like Rockdale, we're witnessing the final and the most pivotal phase of the cryptocurrency revolution. Blythe Masters, a Wall Street powerhouse, said it best. I would take this as seriously as the internet in the 1990s. It's a big deal and will change the way finance operates. Just think about Bitcoin's evolution over the past 15 years, not just in price, but in perception. It was initially dismissed as a fringe idea for tech enthusiasts and criminals, but Bitcoin survived massive booms and busts. By 2017, it was impossible to ignore Bitcoin. As the New York Times wrote, everyone is getting hilariously rich and you're not. Yet, even then, Bitcoin was more of a tech curiosity than a serious financial asset. Today, everything has changed. Bitcoin has defied skeptics repeatedly. It was declared dead over 415 times, but it's still thriving. It's created 172,300 millionaires and earned the acceptance of major financial institutions. In 2024, new Bitcoin ETFs shattered trading records, surpassing $100 billion in assets. Crypto's influence even hit politics, raising $238 million during the election. That's more than oil, pharma, and any of Wall Street's top donors. But in simple terms, what's playing out right here in Texas today is the next stage of this story. It'll almost certainly create another wave of millionaires, both here in the Lone Star State and nationwide. That's because this is bigger than a simple money-making opportunity. It's a fundamental change in the way money in America works. It's a shockwave that'll rattle the entire US monetary system, because what Texas is doing right now is effectively making Bitcoin a direct challenger to the US dollar itself. It's taking the power away from Washington controlling our money and putting it back into the hands of the people. Texas already granted digital currency holders full legal rights, but now it's going further than that. It's designing an entire industry specifically to control the supply of Bitcoin worldwide and to take back power from the federal government. To do this, Texas has created an entire legal framework around Bitcoin. It's attracted Bitcoin miners from around the world, and it's created a Bitcoin ecosystem that's rapidly changing the way that money in Texas works. Soon, Bitcoin is going to effectively become an alternative to the dollar in Texas. You'll have a choice. You'll be able to either choose whether to use Bitcoin or the dollar or both when you make a transaction. So remember, House Bill 4474 already recognized Bitcoin as an official currency, and it grants legal rights to its holders. And the bipartisan Texas House Concurrent Resolution 89 states that no citizen of Texas shall ever be deprived of their right to own it. And it gives Bitcoin holders the same rights as people who hold US dollars. So make no mistake about this. What's going on right now is a momentous development with huge consequences, Texas-sized consequences. And remember, this phenomenon is not isolated to Rockdale. About half of all Bitcoin mining worldwide is now based in Texas. By the last count in 2022, over 262 blockchain and crypto companies are either headquartered in Texas or have a significant presence right here. I suspect that number of companies is much higher now, given the recent surge in prices. It's estimated that these miners are now making as much as $20 million per day, or about $600 million per month. I'll give you an example. Two 23-year-old Texas A&M graduates, Brent Whitehead and Matt Lostro, they made $4 million mining Bitcoin. CNBC reports it's given them both a new kind of financial freedom. As Lostro put it, no one controls it, and you don't have to ask permission to use it. And that's precisely what makes Texas's embrace of the Bitcoin mining industry so important. Texas is quickly gaining a monopoly over the supply of the single most important alternative currency in the world today. And that, it has big consequences for the US dollar. Now, why would that be? Because for the first time since the Confederacy issued its own currency during the Civil War, there is a viable alternative to the US dollar. But this time, the new currency isn't being issued by a breakaway state to pay the military. It's being embraced by one of America's biggest, most powerful, and prosperous states, a state with a fiercely independent streak, and which now has the power to turn Bitcoin into a way to safeguard your money from the long arms of the government. So why is this happening? Well, Texans have always believed it was never America that was broken. It was Washington. They grew fed up with being overtaxed and overregulated like us. They were fed up with being told what sort of cars to buy, what energy to use, how to grow their food, manage their property, and even how to take care of their own health. As former Texas Governor Rick Perry said, most of all, we were fed up because deep down, we knew how great America has always been, how many great things that people have done in spite of their government, and how great the nation can be in the future if the government will just get out of the way. Texans have remained committed to doing things their own way. That's why they currently have no state income tax, no capital gains tax, and no tax on corporate dividends. Now they're taking the next step, and they're putting as much distance between their money and Washington as possible. So as a thought experiment, I want you to imagine you were made governor of Texas today. Let's say you have a strong, booming economy. You have plenty of oil and gas, plus a fast-growing, renewable energy industry. Wealthy people are flocking to your state. Billion-dollar corporations are literally paying their employees to move there. Then you look across the country at the mess in D.C., and you see a federal government spending nearly $2 trillion that it doesn't have, and a deficit that usually it's only seen in wartime or in a banking crisis. You see over in Washington, D.C., a government that is incapable of living within its means. The Treasury has spent more than it took in every single year for 24 years and now owes $36 trillion. You look over and you see interest payments on our debt skyrocketing. Soon, we're going to spend more on interest than any single government department. And when you look over there at D.C., you see a Congress addicted to handouts, military adventures abroad, and seemingly unwilling to change. Now, you might feel hopeful that President Trump is about to resolve some of this mess with huge cuts to the federal budget and a new rapid growth agenda. But even taking those plans into account, the federal debt is expected to hit $57 trillion. And you know that historically speaking, a financial position like this has almost always sparked a huge currency crisis sooner or later. Investors around the world will catch on to the fact that the US dollar is not the safe haven it once was. History gives us hundreds of examples of this playing out and leading to hyperinflation or economic collapse or violent civil unrest. Happened in Germany after World War I. Happened in Eastern Europe after World War II. In Britain, which was once the strongest economy in the world, the pound crashed so far that the dead went unburied. Trash piled high in the streets of London, and businesses were forced to operate on a 3-day week to conserve energy. You know that if it can happen in Britain or Germany, two of the great economic powerhouses of the 20th century, it's entirely possible that it could happen right here in America. In many ways, the signs are all around us. Despite what Washington says, most Americans still feel like inflation is totally out of control. They feel like crime is soaring and they see outrageous civil unrest. They see the education system failing their children. And they have this constant feeling that they just can't financially keep up. Maybe you feel that. Now, given that, it just makes sense to have a plan B to hedge against the dollar. You'd hope for the best, of course. We all do. But you'd plan for the worst. Any sensible person would, at least. And that's exactly what's happening. Texas has a secret plan B. Now, the B in that plan B stands, of course, you might expect, for Bitcoin. That's what's really going on here. Texas is promoting Bitcoin alongside the US dollar. That has never happened before. Yes, we've seen states make gold and silver coins legal tender before, but we've never seen a state build out an entire alternative currency system like this, which is exactly what Texas is doing. Ted Cruz, he told Fox News just recently that he wants, quote, Texas to be the oasis for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. According to Coinbase, 76% of Texans, that's 3 out of 4 Texans, believe in crypto's potential to create new economic opportunities. Over 22,000 crypto jobs have already opened up in the state of Texas. And as one miner said, everyone here is a capitalist and everyone wants Bitcoin to succeed. Everyone wants to make money. Texas House Concurrent Resolution has already stated that no citizen of Texas shall ever be deprived of their right to own Bitcoin. The Texas Public Utility Commissioner said, it's now or never. We need to get this off the ground. Nothing of this is speculation, by the way. It's all established fact, what I just told you. It's all happening now. You can check all my facts in the details and disclosures document linked at the bottom of the page too. But perhaps most compelling of all, the authorities have now begun directly mining Bitcoin inside the Fort Worth Town Hall. Now, as you can imagine, that's leading to a new currency boom across the state. But it's not just the Bitcoin holders that are doing well as a result. No, it's not. Because in a boom like this, entire new industries flourish. It's happened before, of course. About 200 years ago, miners who were making a fortune in the gold rush of 1849. That year, a young boy named Philip Armour came to California with just $100 that he borrowed from his parents. While the general public was focusing on the gold itself, Philip noticed something that most people didn't see, something that would soon make him one of the wealthiest men in America. He noticed that the gold miners all use the same thing to get gold from the earth, a device that was called a sluice. It controls the flow of water. Philip saw that every miner needed one. So instead of competing with the huge flood of miners chasing after the gold rush, Philip started a business selling these devices to the miners. He quickly realized there was more money to be made in selling to the miners than in mining gold himself. He left the state a very rich man. and would use his new fortune to establish Chicago's largest meatpacking business. You've probably even heard of it. Another entrepreneur named John Studebaker built wheelbarrows for the California miners before launching his Studebaker automobile empire. Two forward thinkers named Henry Wells and William Fargo, you know where I'm going with this, they moved to San Francisco and they built a stagecoach company to support the boom. Today, that company, of course, is financial services giant Wells Fargo. And then there's the German-born tailor Levi Strauss. We've all had his products. He abandoned his wagon covering business to build sturdy work pants for miners that were pulling 16-hour days. Today, over 1.2 billion pairs of Levi's blue jeans are sold each year. In other words, in a boom like this, owning the infrastructure that makes the industry work is often extremely lucrative. That's already beginning to happen in Texas too. Shares of the biggest miners have already soared. Marathon Digital Holdings, with a large presence in Granbury, is up 87% since September. Iren Energy in Childress, Texas is up 239% since February of last year. And BitDeer, here in Rockdale, is up 122% over the last year. But like usual, the companies supporting the boom are doing even better. The poster child for this is a company called Texas Pacific Land. From the outside, it looks like nothing special. Wall Street Journal called it a defunct 19th century railroad. It's a centuries-old firm with deep ties to the Texas energy industry, and until recently, didn't even qualify to be listed with major stock indexes. But in 2022, it made a strategic pivot. It began using its excess energy to mine Bitcoin. Since then, its share price has gone parabolic. But I doubt it'll be the last stock to soar like that. So how can I be so certain? Because there are three smoking guns that make this inevitable. Undeniable proof that Texas is laying the groundwork to challenge the US dollar and to send massive shockwaves throughout the US financial system. The first is that Texas has perfect laws. You have to have the law on your side if you expect to see massive growth. So for years, crypto as an industry faced intense regulatory hurdles, red tape, fines, even imprisonment. Today, Texas is being called Bitcoin country. Now, sure, crypto is starting to get more attention at the federal level, especially with the new pro-crypto head of the SEC. But by the time the feds figure it out, Texas will have already spent years building their oasis. Legislation is moving to have it written into the state's Bill of Rights. The state even incentivizes Bitcoin miners to manage their energy usage. Here in Rockdale, for example, Riot Blockchain received $31 million from this state to cut its energy during a heat wave. And other companies can secure huge tax credits. But that's not the only reason, of course. Texas also has the perfect sources of capital. As the saying goes, you need money to make money. We've all heard that. Now, luckily, the Lone Star State is drowning in it. Venture capital funding for crypto companies surged in recent years, with firms investing more than $27 billion. That was more than the previous decade combined, according to PitchBook. The CEO of a Dallas crypto startup, Orox, says that the landscape is insanely competitive. Even local banks and credit unions are rallying behind cryptos. For example, Lone Star Credit Union offers its members access to an exchange where they can purchase 20 different types of cryptos. But the biggest advantage by far, it's not that, it's something else. It's that Texas has the perfect energy. Texas is still our country's top oil and gas producer by a long shot. In 2023, it produced almost as much oil as the rest of the country put together. It supplied 27% of our natural gas. Again, by far and away, the most of any state. Even more, few Americans realize Texas is the only state in the continental US with its own power grid. That gives it a huge advantage when it comes to mining Bitcoin, which is incredibly energy intensive. A single Bitcoin mine consumes more energy each day than 700 American homes. Now, better yet, Texas is the only state in the continental US that has a fully independent electric grid. That gives Texas a massive competitive advantage. Join up the dots, and what do you get? Texas has the laws, Texas has the capital, and the endless energy needed to dominate the world's supply of Bitcoin. That's why there's a mad rush to establish a presence in the Lone Star State. One of the largest exchanges, Crypto.com, just relocated its headquarters to Texas. And Riot Blockchain just broke ground on the world's largest Bitcoin mine in Corsicana. The company purchased over 31,000 new mining computers, and the entire project is estimated to cost a whopping $333 billion. So here in Rockdale, Jim Gibson, the executive director of the Municipal Development District, had only been on the job for 9 days, and 6 different crypto entities approached him about setting up in town. One of these companies asked to move in 10,000 top-of-the-line computers. Another offered him $100 million to build a mining facility. And remember, this isn't just happening in Rockdale, but across the state. What we're seeing are the tremors before a massive earthquake. Everything is now in place for Texas to usher in the next wave of crypto wealth. Despite its massive rally and all the attention in the press, still only 17% of Americans and 21% of Texans own crypto for themselves. But I believe that's going to change. And as this all plays out, as it changes, it's going to make Texas enormously powerful, and it's going to pose a major threat to the US dollar. Now, I'm not saying the US dollar will disappear. At least that's not going to happen overnight. But over the long run, I expect a large number of Americans will own Bitcoin and other cryptos just like they do stocks. Today, 41% of American households have money in the markets. If 41% of Americans own Bitcoin, well, then $100,000 Bitcoin is just the beginning. This will create a boom similar to what we saw during the gold rush or the oil boom and the development of Silicon Valley. Investors paying attention to what's happening could see enormous gains. And as I'll show you, there's a short list of investments with ties to this currency rollout that I believe could double or triple or even 10x your money in the years ahead. Yes, 10 baggers are coming. I've helped people do just that nearly 20 times in my career. And this event could help me do it 20 times over. And keep in mind, you don't need to buy any Bitcoin mining equipment or learn the lingo involved. You don't need to process any complicated cryptocurrency transactions. You don't really even need to buy Bitcoin yourself if you don't want to or already own enough. In many cases, setting yourself up to profit off this is as simple as buying a stock in a regular brokerage account. There's no doubt in my mind, this is the number one most important story in the financial world today and the biggest opportunity of the decade. So what's next? I believe a major announcement from the Texas state government will soon trigger a nationwide race to buy Bitcoin. And if that happens, it's critical that you take advantage of this opportunity before that happens. To understand why, I need to tell you an important story. Over 400 years ago, there was a man named Thomas Gresham. He was a financier under Queen Elizabeth I. He made one of history's most important economic observations. In his day, multiple currencies were in use, each with different metal content and value. And currency debasement was rampant. Coins were often clipped to create new ones, making it hard to tell the good money from the bad. And Gresham noticed that people would spend their bad money quickly while hoarding the more valuable coins. This became known as Gresham's Law. Bad money drives out good. You've likely experienced this. Buy a drink on vacation in Mexico, and the local bartender will hand you back your change in the local currency and keep your US dollars. But today, this principle is more relevant than ever because you're about to live through a real-life example of exactly what happens when multiple currencies are in use right here in America. On one side, you have the US dollar, which is managed directly by the Federal Reserve. It can be printed and it can be debased at the first sign of trouble, as we saw in 2020. Now, long term, the dollar has lost 90% of its value since 1970. That's the reason prices have doubled at McDonald's in the past decade and why the cost of living is so high across the economy. Our money has been debased. Now contrast that to Bitcoin, which is increasing at a value at a rate of roughly 100% every single year. It can't be printed or debased. It's completely unconnected to government spending. If you own Bitcoin, your savings aren't being debased. They're getting far more valuable. Now, given that, Gresham's law tells us exactly what's going to happen next. The US dollar won't die out. It'll still exist, but it'll be the first thing you spend. Now, meanwhile, you'll see increasing numbers of people hoarding their Bitcoin. They'll do anything to avoid spending their Bitcoin. That's the position that Bitcoin is rapidly taking within the economy. No one is going to pay for their coffee with Bitcoin, just as you'd never waste your gold or your silver on a small purchase. It's far too precious to fritter away on small stuff like that. Instead, it'll become our good money, the money people and businesses and even whole governments value above everything else. And Texas is going to lead the charge on that. This isn't speculation. It's already happening. Just consider, I want you to think about this. The number of companies that are now putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets. 29 different publicly listed companies now hold Bitcoin as a strategic asset already. That includes companies like Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy. I'm sure you've heard of that. It's up 511%. It also includes firms like Elon Musk's Tesla. In fact, Microsoft just held a shareholder vote on putting Bitcoin on its balance sheet. They voted against it, but it's the same with Amazon. It's still considering it. Its shareholders are demanding it, is what's important. This trend will almost certainly accelerate in the days ahead. But the thing I'm most excited about is much bigger than that. It's the creation of a dedicated strategic Bitcoin reserve. You may have heard a little bit about this already. President Trump has pitched plans for the US government to hold Bitcoin in the same way that it holds gold in Fort Knox. So it's not that far out there, is it? But that's not what I'm talking about. Because as we speak, 10 different US states are planning to establish their own strategic Bitcoin reserves. Texas is just one of them. And that, I predict, is where this story is headed. It'll begin a nationwide crypto arms race. As you can see, Texas is already perfectly placed to create its own Bitcoin reserve. After all, it controls a huge amount of the supply through its embrace of the mining industry. It has the laws, it has the capital, the energy, we talked about that, and now infrastructure to acquire massive amounts of Bitcoin. So ask yourself this. Would you send that Bitcoin to Washington or New York to be managed by the federal government? No one with half a brain would give up control of such a strategic asset. I believe this bill is going to pass quickly, and Texas will create its own reserve. And that move is going to push this story into new and exciting territory. It'll force other states to make the same move, if only to avoid getting left behind. It's the same game theory dynamic that we saw play out in the 1950s and the 1960s, but that was involving nuclear weaponry. Put simply, if your rival has a strategic advantage over you, then you're forced to copy them and maintain an equal balance of power. This is exactly what will happen with Bitcoin at the state and the national level. Think about it. Let's say America, Britain, Russia, and Germany all created their own Bitcoin reserves. What do you think China would do? Well, China would be forced to build its own reserve merely to stay on equal terms. The point is, once we start to see countries develop strategic reserves, it no longer matters whether you're for or against Bitcoin. What matters then is keeping up. As Michael Saylor put it, I think this is incredibly bullish for digital assets. We're going to see an end to the war on crypto. Mark my words. This is exactly what's going to happen very soon all over the world. And there's no place in a stronger position to make this happen than Texas. That means you have a choice that you need to make today. You could do nothing. And you could just sit and watch passively as the biggest change to our monetary system in 150 years plays out without you. Or you can act today to prepare your money for what I think is certain to come. It's your call. But make no mistake, you don't have long to make up your mind. The race is already on. Donald Trump likely sees what's at stake, which is why he's been so sympathetic to the crypto industry. He wants to keep this at the federal level. But Texas has already started the process of creating Bitcoin reserve legislation. It could announce it's ready to proceed literally any day now. By that point, it'll be too late. You'll be just one of the crowd, chasing the market higher as prices melt up. What I'm offering you today is the chance to be early and the chance to set yourself up to see huge returns in the next 12 months as this story plays out. See, there's a dumb way to play this story and a smart way. Unfortunately, I think most people will go about things the wrong way. They'll speculate wildly on cryptos that are rumored to be next in line behind Bitcoin. Or they'll buy into popular mining stocks that have already doubled or tripled or more. Who knows? They might even make a little bit of money that way, for a while at least. But the vast majority of people, even smart and successful people, they're going to do nothing. They're going to continue to assume tomorrow is going to be pretty much the same as today. But I urge you not to do these things because they are all going to lose money. Instead, I want to show you how to do things the smart way. As I've said earlier, I've spent the best part of a decade exploring this story. I've personally made $100,000 just mining Bitcoin myself and thousands of percent gains on various cryptos. In fact, the vast, by far vast majority of my net worth is in crypto holdings. I know how it works up close. I started mining back in 2013. That's the kind of long-term experience that most analysts just don't have. Now, not only that, I have a long track record of showing people just like you how to make money from cryptocurrencies. In my crypto-focused portfolio, which costs thousands of dollars a year to access, I've recommended a dozen full and partial positions of cryptos that are up 500% or 1,000% or even more than that. These are all real recommendations that gave people just like you the chance to grow their money. One man even told me he'd made $54 million using my most sophisticated crypto research. But here's the thing. You don't need to buy cryptocurrencies to profit from this story. There's a whole new currency ecosystem flourishing in Texas right now, with many publicly listed stocks rushing to take advantage. That's why I've spent the last several months putting together absolutely everything that you yourself need to know how to profit here. The first thing I'd like to send you is a brand new research report called How to Profit from Texas's New Currency. Inside that report, you're going to find the specific stocks that I recommend that you buy today to capitalize on what's happening here in Texas. You see, as a Bitcoin miner myself, I can tell you there are three things that you need to build a successful Bitcoin mining operation. You obviously need massive amounts of computing power. You need a reliable energy source, and you need to keep your costs low. The companies helping provide these services to Bitcoin miners are the picks and shovels of the industry. To use the examples from the California gold rush that I started earlier, they'll become the Levi's and the Wells Fargo of the 21st century. For instance, there's one company that I'm recommending. It literally builds the cryptographic accelerator units that Bitcoin miners need to run their operations. Another one provides crucial technology that Bitcoin miners require to keep their processing centers running smoothly. It's a favorite stock of billionaire hedge fund manager Steve Cohen. In fact, 32 different hedge funds already own this stock, and I'm going to tell you about it. Another stock that I've uncovered literally supplies a fail-safe form of energy. That's exactly the kind of technology that Bitcoin miners need to keep their operations running. It's not oil or gas or wind or solar or nuclear energy, but it allows high-tech operations like Bitcoin miners to stay in business even if those power sources fail. recently signed a $200 million deal with the US Department of Energy. The final company that I've found has developed a technology that I think every single Bitcoin miner in the world is going to need soon. It's a way of making their mines run at a lower cost with lower heat pollution and more efficiently. It's already partnered with NVIDIA, which started out building crypto mining chips. And it's moving itself into the space as we speak. You'll get my write-up of all those stocks in your copy of How to Profit from Texas's New Currency. But that's not all I want to send you. I also want to share with you another report called How to Buy Bitcoin the Smart Way. Now, listen, you don't need to buy Bitcoin to profit from this story. But you also didn't need to buy it in 2017 at $1,000 before it soared 14,000%, or even last year at $42,000 before it soared over 200%. If you think you've missed your chance, I promise you have not. But with whole governments now looking at ways to invest, you're finally running out of time to take a position. In this report that I'll send you, you'll discover everything you need to know to buy in, including where to buy and where not to buy, how to protect your cryptos, how to store your Bitcoin so it can't be hacked, and much, much more. In other words, you'll get an insider's guide to buying Bitcoin with everything I've learned over 12 years in the industry. To date, I've shown more than 150,000 people how to get started with cryptocurrencies, and I'd love to help you too. On top of that, I'd like to send you another report. It's called The Top Crypto for 2025. This report profiles the one crypto I'm most excited about in 2025. It's not Bitcoin, it's not Ethereum, but it's already intimately connected to the US government and the Federal Reserve. I see it as the perfect play, the perfect way to play huge shifts that are taking place in our financial system right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see it rocket higher this year as the trends that I've been telling you about reach their logical conclusion. To get you a copy of all three of these reports immediately, all I ask is that you take a no-risk trial subscription to my technology investing research letter. It's called the Stansberry Innovations Report. If you've never heard of it before, just take 30 days. See if you like it, risk-free. You'll receive instant access to all the research I just told you about, plus our entire model portfolio of cutting-edge investments from across the tech and biotech industries. You can see for yourself how our trade recommendations are performing, and then you decide after a month if it's a good fit for you. If it's not, if you don't like it, just let us know and we'll issue a refund right away. But if you decide to stick with us, every month I'll send you a report detailing a brand new opportunity in the tech space and how it could help you collect outsized potential profits. I'm not just talking about the shift that we're seeing in the financial system either. You'll also hear about lucrative tech trends like AI, cryptocurrencies, CRISPR, robotics, augmented reality, and even more than that. In fact, when you sign up, you're also going to get access to a second bonus research report. It's called The Household Names of Tomorrow. And inside, you'll get the names of specific stocks that are almost completely unknown today, but could go on to become the next Apple or the next Google or Tesla of the next decade. But you'll hear about them now. This report alone could have a huge impact on your financial returns, not just this year, but for the next decade or more. But it comes completely free with your subscription. You'll get both of the reports I just told you about when you take a trial of my innovations report. If the opportunities that I've been telling you about today, if these opportunities have you at all excited, you'll love the work that we do in the innovations report. Our mission is to help you understand the ways new technology is going to change the world and to help you back the companies behind it while they're unknown to the masses. We've managed to consistently stay ahead of the world's biggest and most important trends and to show our readers how to make money and retire comfortably, often years earlier than they ever thought was possible. How? How do we do that? We do it by delivering the best ideas by employing world-class experts in our team. In fact, I doubt there's anyone else in America's retail investment research space who spends what we do on top analytical talent each year. But just because we pay a lot to bring you our research doesn't mean you have to pay a lot to receive it. Normally, 1 year's access to my team's research, featuring at least 12 monthly trade recommendations, normally that costs $499. But today, you can receive a 1-year membership to Stansberry's Innovations Report with a no-risk 30-day trial built in for far less than that. We think it's the single best deal in the financial space, and it's more than worth it. Here's all the research you'll get immediate access to when you get started today. The second you accept my offer, you'll get instant access to all of this. How to profit from Texas new currency. That's your guide to understanding and profiting from the biggest shift seen in the financial system for decades as Bitcoin becomes a genuine alternative to the US dollar. How to buy Bitcoin the smart way. That's including everything I've learned about buying and storing Bitcoin over the last 12 years. The top crypto for 2025. Now, this has all the details of the cryptocurrency that I'm most excited about as money floods into the crypto sector this year. You'll also get the household names of tomorrow. Now, this lists several companies that I think will be market leads for years to come. And you'll get 12 issues of Stansberry Innovations Report. Each new issue will be delivered to you on the third Friday of each month, just after the markets close, so that you can read and digest the trade recommendation over the weekend and be ready to move on Monday morning when the market opens. Now, if you choose to. Plus, we'll give you a crypto altcoin with a 10-bagger upside potential. I haven't had time to tell you about this one yet, but there's another crypto that I've been tracking for years. It has massive upside potential. I'll explain why with a full write-up in this report. You'll get a full breakdown on these opportunities, including the names and ticker symbols of my top recommendations and how to buy them. These reports are the first things you'll get when you start a no-risk trial membership to our firm's top-rated Innovations Report newsletter. On the third Friday of every month, we'll send our latest report and our newest investment recommendations. You'll learn how to profit from the fastest growing industries on the planet. If it's a new technology changing our world, you can count on me and my partner, John Engel, to pinpoint the best way to make money from it. Then there's the other huge reason that thousands of people follow my work. Our track record, our proven track record, stacks up against the very best. The Innovations Report model portfolio has trounced the S&P 500 since 2018. 10 of our picks would have doubled your money. 5 of those would have made you 4 times your money or more. In fact, the average gain for my recommendations in Innovations Report is 49.2%. Of course, all investments carry risk, you know that, and past performance does not indicate future success. That's why you should never invest more than what you're willing to lose. You won't find many experts who would share their entire track record, winners and losers, let alone match those kinds of results. Now, given all that, you're probably asking yourself, okay, if it's that good, why is it so cheap? There's never been a better time to invest in breakthrough technology. The changes that we're seeing in the financial system, from the emergence of new currency systems like Bitcoin to the sudden growth of AI, and 100 other tech trends confirm that. These new technologies present huge opportunities, but to properly understand and profit from them, you need an expert guide. At Stansberry Research, we're better equipped than just about anyone to help you do it. We've been in this business for more than 20 years now, and today we have more than 150,000 customers. To me, that's the best endorsement any business can ever have. But look, if our roles, mine and yours, if our roles were reversed, I'd want to actually see the research for myself before deciding if this is the right fit. That's why we heavily discount our entry price to give you the chance to give it a go without a big financial commitment. I know our firm's work can help you. And believe me, the more people who understand these trends, the better it is for all of us. With this information in hand, you'll understand how to profit from what's happening right here in Texas. So make no mistake, what's happening down here will have huge Texas-sized consequences for everyone. For the first time in more than a century, we're seeing the states embrace an alternative to the dollar. That's going to change everything. And in the process, it's going to make some people a lot of money. Are you going to be one of them? Only you can answer that question. Now it's your choice. You can walk away and you can let this happen without you. It's going to happen. Or you can join me today. Now's the time to get facts for yourself. It's not too late. My advice is this: don't wait. If you miss out now, and in 2 weeks' time you hear Texas has formally created its own Bitcoin reserve, sound familiar? You're going to kick yourself. And I'm sure of it. And we've made it very easy and ridiculously cheap for you to learn about the best technology investments in the world as Texas embraces a new currency. With a 100% risk-free offer, you got nothing to lose. Everything you've ever known about making money in America is changing. And your life is going to change in hundreds of ways as a result of that. The only question is, really, will you be ready? If you are, just click the Get Started button below. You'll be taken to a secure order form where you can review the details of this special offer once more and claim your discount, as well as secure the research that I've told you about quickly and easily.